Apple's just wrapped up their keynote a few hours ago, and in this video I am going to give you my first thoughts and more of a review of the event itself, so let's get into it. So before I go into the details of what each of the products were announced, I'm just going to quickly go over the keynote itself as an overview and more of the stuff that's not specifically related to the products. Craig Federighi's demo of continuity and doubling down on secrecy and all that was absolutely hilarious, you gotta admit, because he probably outdid anything that he's ever done on stage before. Tim Cook did upsell why the iPad was a success all along, but as the new iPads themselves were announced, I struggled to think why people would upgrade to them, because they're more just upgrading the hardware specs, and there wasn't really that much that you couldn't do with the previous one, but I'll get more into that in a minute. So let's now go through all the details of all the products that they announced during the keynote and my thoughts on them. First off, iOS 8.1. So it launches with Apple Pay on Monday the 20th of October. It will be the 21st in Australia, because obviously time zone difference and all that. It's going to include general improvements, as Craig Federighi highlighted, including bringing the camera roll back, because a lot of people missed it, and iCloud Photo Library is going to be in beta form. And also, WatchKit for iOS developers will allow developers to start to make applications for the Apple Watch this November, and I'm satisfied with what they announced for the Apple Watch and that. Even though I was slightly confused, I thought the WatchKit thing was already out, or not, or what, but obviously it's not released yet, so at least we got something more out of it. So then that'll probably keep people amused over the summer, is finding out what developers are going to bring once the watch is released. But I'm still struggling to figure out whether or not it's worth to get the first gen or the second gen. Probably, I would say, go for the second generation. Just like from the original iPad to the iPad 2, you can see there's a clear difference. iPhone to iPhone 3G, there's a massive difference. It's probably going to be the exact same scenario here. So that's what they announced for iOS 8.1. Now, the other piece of software that they announced was OS X Yosemite. So it's going to be available to the public in non-beta form, because there was a public beta for it. It will be available in non-beta form today, and it's a free upgrade from OS X Mavericks. I will be upgrading to it, and that once I've made this video and the recap video, which I'll eventually upload to the channel today. As I am currently speaking, you can go to the Mac App Store and download it there. There's also iWork updates for Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, just so it fits in and blends better with the whole OS X Yosemite operating system as a whole. And if you do want to see my first impressions of OS X Yosemite, or a review of my thoughts of how it's better than Mavericks or something like that, definitely let me know in the comment section below, because if people want it, I am more inclined to do it for you, the public. So that's all there really was to it. They stretched it out for 40 minutes or more, talking about all the software stuff, but most of that was in the demo that he did. But there wasn't really much new to it, apart from saying OS X Yosemite is out today, iOS 8.1 will be out next week with these few new features. And that's all they really said in the first 40 minutes. Then for the second half of the presentation, they talked about the iPad Air 2. So basically, what makes it different from the original iPad Air, which is the one I've got, it's now got an anti-reflective coating on the display. It's down from 7.6mm thin, I believe it is, down to 6.1mm thin. So it's down from the thickness of a pencil to thinner than a pencil, if that makes sense. The Apple A8X chip, that's going to be awkward to say from now on, it has 3 billion transistors in it, whereas the A8 chip, which you can find in the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, has 2 billion, so it's slightly faster even again. It was 40% faster for the CPU, and 2.5 times faster for the graphics processing unit, obviously because it's a X generation chip. They updated the camera on the back from a 5 megapixel up to an 8 megapixel camera. It now does slow-mo at 120 frames per second, not 240 frames per second like the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, so there's a differentiator there. So it's basically the same slow-mo as the iPhone 5S. It now does panoramas up to 43 megapixels, and it has burst mode on the front and rear cameras. So basically you could say it's a combination of the iPhone 5S and the iPhone 6 camera put together, and there's nothing like optical image stabilization or anything like that, but you don't really need that on a tablet. 802.11ac Wi-Fi is included, which is what they said was 2.8 times faster than 802.11n at similar distances, and it also has capabilities for 150 megabits per second LTE on the cellular model. So basically the same wireless specs as the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. They've removed the mute and orientation switch from the side of the device. So if you look at the image down the bottom there, you'll see on the far right you've got, from left to right, the volume down button, the volume up button, and a dot. When I saw the chassis for this way back when it was leaked a couple of weeks ago, well, it wasn't even that lot ago, it was about a week ago or so now, it was a hole that I thought that they would cut out eventually to then put in the mute switch and all that, but they've got rid of it, so I'm incredibly confused as to why it's not on the iPad Air, but it is on the new iPad minis, which I will get to in a second. Also, storage sizes are 16, 64 and 128 gigabytes, which were what I was expecting after the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus were announced. They definitely need to get rid of the 16 gigabyte model from here on out, but what can you do? It's going to be Apple. And it starts at Australian dollars, $619 for the 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only. And from what I looked up, that's $20 more expensive than the iPad Air, first generation of the iPad Air, 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only in Australia. So the Apple tax, or more the Australian Apple tax, has gone up again. And that's going to make people less and less inclined to upgrade. So overall, there's a lot of good stuff they've added to the iPad Air 2, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough for people to upgrade to it and all that. And if anything, it's more software features that would get people to upgrade more than the hardware itself. And I wish they added stuff like split screen multitasking and similar features like that, because that's what will get people to upgrade their iPads if it was purely just for that model, or even if it was for the iPad Air and the iPad Air 2. That's all that really came to mind from looking back at it. So overall, it's great for a yearly update, but I don't know if it's met the expectations in terms of functionality that Tim Cook and co have been building up the hype for this whole year because of the slowly rapid increase in tablet sales. So moving on, the iPad Mini 3 was announced and finished in like 2 minutes, literally. Because it's literally, get an iPad Mini 2, right? Now you put the Touch ID sensor down the bottom, and that's it. What the heck? You basically have to pay, in Australia, $130 more to get the iPad Mini 3 over the iPad Mini 2 for the same storage configuration. And obviously not with cellular and all that, they're both Wi-Fi models. That's a very bad move, because I can see, and I sort of wanted them to do it in a way as well, is to have the iPad Mini have less powerful specs and all that to get people to get the iPad Air 2 so they don't consider getting the iPad Mini, because it's similar screen size to the iPhone 6 Plus. So it's the opposite of you get the iPhone 6 Plus and you get the iPad Air. You don't really get the iPad Mini because that's sort of going right in both directions. So my buying guide tip for this holiday season, if you want an iPad Mini with only 16 gigabytes of storage, get the iPad Mini 2 with Retina display, which is now $299 in the US. I don't know what the price it is in Australia off the top of my head. And don't even bother with the first generation iPad mini despite its more attractive price, because the cost it is from the first generation iPad mini to the second generation, despite there being no upgrade in the storage capacity and you don't get cellular and stuff like that, there's a lot more updated in that than there is from the iPad mini 2 to the iPad mini 3. Because all they've done is just added Touch ID and that's it. I was hoping they were going to add more to it and hold back the anti-reflective coating and something like the A8X chip or something like that, just to keep it a differentiator. But no, they really went incredibly stingy and just put the Touch ID sensor. So obviously it's a good update. It's got the Touch ID sensor and it's available in gold. Keep that in mind, it's all available in gold. If you don't want it in gold, then just get the iPad mini 2. There, done. So moving on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the 27-inch iMac with the 5K Retina display. It is jaw-dropping what they've been able to do and all that. They've even had to put separate processors inside the display in order to power the pixels on the display and get the refresh rate up high enough and stuff like that. So the screen resolution is 5,120 pixels left to right by 2,880 pixels top to bottom, which results in 218 pixels per inch. So there's no 21.5-inch Retina model for this, presumably because it's harder to manufacture a display with so many pixels on a much smaller surface area when it comes to screen size. So that's probably a limiting factor as to why they haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm expecting that to be announced sometime during 2015. And in Australia, for the 27-inch model, it has a starting price of $2,999. And it starts today. Now, about that price tag, don't get me wrong, it's incredible technology they've put in and the display and all that. You're basically paying for a better than 4K TV, but it's a 27-inch iMac that you're probably going to spend more time at than you would your TV in your family room or something that would have 1920 by 1080 pixels. So it's a substantially better display, don't get me wrong. But I would strongly recommend getting the MacBook Air. But I would strongly recommend getting a MacBook Pro Retina 15-inch with 512GB of solid-state storage and a quad-core i7 processor for basically the same price as what this is, because with this you're getting 8GB of storage, AMD Radeon graphics, and a Fusion drive and all that, but you're not getting anything like a solid-state drive, pure solid state drive, so you get even faster performance through that. And it's not obviously portable because it's a 27-inch desktop computer that's sitting on a desk, whereas a MacBook Pro Retina you can take with you anywhere you go. And I just can't see how that many people are going to go for that model. Obviously there'll be graphic artists and stuff that will want to get it if they sit at it all day long. They're the people they're targeting. But for the general consumer, I just don't see how you would be enticed to get this at all. If anything, wait for the 21.5-inch model and wait until the price drops come for those, and then it would be slightly enticing to get. So I'm disappointed that there were no, to talk about the display technology and all that there were no updates to the Apple Thunderbolt display, and it's probably got something to do with the Thunderbolt 2 issues, because you've got your computer, you've got a display, you link it up all through a single Thunderbolt 2 cable. What that cable is probably capable of doing wouldn't have enough processing power in it and to carry across 14.7 million pixels from your computer to the display and something like that, and then it's got to carry all your other stuff like your Ethernet, your headphone jack, your USB ports, because it's more than just a display, it's an extension of your I/O ports and all that as well, and built-in speakers and stuff like that as well. So I can understand why they haven't updated it yet, but it's probably the odd thing of we'd have to wait for Thunderbolt 3 at least, from my understanding of it and what I've read on the internet, until we can get a Apple Thunderbolt display. So it's a really great product, but I don't know that many people that would be wanting to get it. Now, going from iMac to Mac Mini. So I'm really glad that they did update this product and it's available today. And the reason I'm saying this is because it hasn't been updated since October 2012, so it's exactly 2 years since it was updated. I was looking at getting one of these about a year ago now, but then I ended up getting the MacBook Pro at 15-inch instead, and I've never regretted it since, as like the computer I could use to then do all my iOS development and all that and get a separate monitor screen and all that, but it just wasn't feasible for the setup I have at home. But anyways, it's good to see that it has the following updated specs. It's got 8GB of RAM instead of 4GB at similar price points. It has either Intel Iris or HD Graphics 5000, updated from 4000. The Fusion drive is included in the $999 model in Australia. It supports for output into Ultra HD displays at 30Hz. So it's basically meaning if the monitor is capable of 30Hz, it will be roughly like 30 frames per second or something like that. I won't go into the specifics of it, but it's roughly, that is what it's trying to say. It's got Thunderbolt 2 ports that will never get used by anyone unless they have an Apple Thunderbolt display with the 5K resolution that hasn't come out yet. But obviously they'd have to update that to Thunderbolt 3 to be compatible. And also 802.11ac Wi-Fi. Now the biggest downgrade I've noticed, despite them releasing a cheaper version and all that, is that all of the processors are dual cores. So they've completely buggered up the product from what I see. Everything else is basically spec to the gills and it's all perfect. But it's not ideal for people that are doing video editing or really high-intense graphic work and stuff like that. It would only be ideal, I guess you could say, if you're doing like photography students and like Adobe Photoshop or something like that. I can see it's probably going to be just as powerful enough there if you slightly upgrade the processor. But make sure when you do get it, do go for a dual-core i7. I can't stress that enough. You'll instantly regret it if you don't go for the i7 model in any of these dual-core processors. So I'm really happy that they've updated and they've basically not ignored it. I don't really mind that they didn't update the shell of it and all that. It was more the internals I was after. But they are a bit late to the game for the specs that they've added in and all that. They could have done this a very, very long time ago. And if anything, it probably would have made my mind up quicker to get the MacBook Pro Retina, to tell you the truth. So moving on, I'm just going to review basically the whole keynote now. I don't give it a score as such because you can't really put a number on a keynote. It's all down to each of the individual products. So it wasn't the best keynote they've ever done, but it wasn't the worst one that I've seen them do. If Craig Federighi cut down his introduction to iOS 8.1 and OS X Yosemite to about 10 minutes, which I will cut it down to about 2 minutes when I do the recap video, which I haven't started yet at all, the whole event would have been over in an hour. So that's probably why they held it on campus, because it was such a small keynote. I'm not surprised there were no MacBook Air Retina announcements, based on the same reasons I had in my expectations video, which I'll leave a link for in the description below so you can check that out. I wish Apple put more software features into the iPad Air 2 to get people to upgrade to it, like split screen multitasking and all that, because there's a lot of people out there that are saying it's just another iPad, just slightly better specs. That's about it. There's not really that much to it. The 27-inch iMac is jaw-dropping for what it is capable of doing, don't get me wrong. But it's probably not so much a consumer product, but more for professionals that don't need a machine as powerful as the Mac Pro. And you could say really popular YouTubers like Chris Pirillo. Yes, I reckon he will upgrade to it. I honestly don't know, because I didn't watch his thoughts last night. I just watched the keynote by itself, because I was tweeting at the same time. But I reckon when I watch that video, he will say that he'll be wanting to update to it. I can just see it coming. It's also great to hear OS X Yosemite is now available to download, as I was expecting, and iOS 8.1 with Apple Pay is coming out on Monday, or Tuesday in Australia, and I hope that's got a lot of improvements and fixes to it, including making the battery life just a little bit better at that, because when I updated from 7.1.2 to 8.0 on my iPhone 5S, I swear the battery's gone down by about 45 minutes on the average day, or even more. So I wish they've solved a lot of the issues there, but quality assurance and all that Chris Pirillo keeps carrying on about, that's not going to be resolved. I can almost guarantee that. So overall, really great keynote. Not the best, but a lot of solid updates. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. The question for you, the audience, is: will you upgrade your iPad or get a new iPad based off what you saw today? And if not, why not? What are your thoughts on it? You can let me know by leaving a comment below, or you can send me a tweet or a Google Plus message. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, and if you choose to, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Twitter at techboy1212, and on Google Plus as well, the same name as it is on my YouTube channel. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I will quickly edit this video, upload it, and make a recap video, and then I'll upload that. Then I'll probably download Yosemite and test it out. So it's going to be a very busy day, even though I'm not purchasing anything online like all the other YouTubers. So yeah, until next time, thank you very much for watching, if you've watched to this point, and I will catch you later.